bring me my trash can.
Well, I know of one guy. I know of one guy that you did spend some time down there with, intimately, so to speak. A good friend of mine as well. One Mr. Jerome Young. Some people know him as New Jack. And I mean, you know, because Puerto Rico always had a way with like pushing that line, pushing the envelope, right? Bringing in the hardcore stuff, and everybody knows at that time, you know what I mean? Hardcore was just getting its infancy, so to speak, but it was getting over. He was getting over huge. And I mean, Jack was always one of these guys to me. He was an anomaly because if you knew Jack, or if you knew Jerome, that was different than knowing New Jack. You know what I mean? And you get, and you spend some time with them and you find out, oh, they are kind of a little bit of a different person. But at the same time, they're both a little crazy. Tell me about your time with New Jack.
They're both crazy. The first time I met New Jack down there, New Jack was coming down because, you know, Puerto Rico is the land of blood and guts. Like, it's where all the hardcore stuff stemmed from. If you go back in time, ECW guys, they took everything. The sheep herders, and believe it or not, most people that don't know much about the bushwhackers and before that, they were the original hardcore guys with barbed wire and fire, and they did all their stuff in Puerto Rico. So for places that like love blood and guts, we had New Jack and Balls Mahoney coming in. Homicide was coming in and doing some hardcore stuff down there with them too. And Madman Pondo was coming down, you know. And so Jack and I, the first time, it was a bit of a feeling out process for Jack and I. You know, I'm a big guy. He doesn't really know who I am. He's going to try to test me. I'm not being tested, right? But we sorted it out. We sorted it out. He realized I wasn't backing up, and he realized, well, you know, and the rest of the guys respect him. So, you know, maybe I won't test these waters at the time. Everybody had their angles kind of set out, but so we were doing a 6-man to kind of tease everything that was going to happen later, where everybody would get their thing in. So it was me, Balls Mahoney, and I think me, Balls Mahoney, and I can't remember if Savio was on the outside. Yeah, it was me, Balls Mahoney, and Bison, and Savio was on the outside versus New Jack. No, it was New Jack. Savio was babyface at the time, and Viscera. So we're back to do it, like, gonna work out stuff. New Jack didn't want to talk about anything. I said, okay, cool, I'm good with that. I don't need to.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. So we said, we're gonna start off outside. We're gonna brawl around the arena. And he said, and we'll just go from there. I said, fine. And so Jack's leaning over his bag of 5,000 weapons that he always takes with him, right?
Yeah.
And he's got this staple gun, and he pulls it out, and all this dried blood flakes off the staples. It's like a dust coming off the thing. And I'm like, Jack? And he's like, oh, it's just blood, man. I like to sit here and sweat, just bleed into my bag afterwards. And I'm like, why? You know, so I'm like, you got. So just as we're going out through the curtain, Jack says, okay, Hangman, I'm going to take this and I'm going to staple this dollar bill to your face in your cheek. And I said, not with those bloody staples, you're not.
Right.
And he goes, no, it's my thing. I said, well, it's not my thing. You're not putting a dirty, bloody staple in my face. And so we were and then our music hits and we go out. So we go out and I pair off with Viscera and we're brawling. And Jack wants to get this staple gun thing in the first. So he posts Balls Mahoney, gets the staple gun. He tells Viscera to hold me. So Viscera's holding me with my arms behind me. And I said, Nelson, I'm not taking this. And Jack's coming towards me, like, with the dollar bill and the staple gun up. I said, I'm not taking the bloody staple, Nelson. And I kind of cinched down on Nelson, and I kicked the staple gun out of Jack's hand. So, but I caught him in the hand. So now he's pissed. He didn't get the kid in. He didn't get the thing in. So he comes over and he's grabbing on. We start brawling, and then he was like kind of being a little uncooperative. So I just picked him up and like threw him on the guardrail. and over the guardrail on the outside. So he got hot about that. I was like, he's like, you're not taking this, blah, blah, blah. And he's bitching me out. So I throw him into the ring, and we all go back in the ring now to settle down and go to the corners. So I go into Jack, and I go to grab him. He kicks me in the hand. So now I'm mad. So he's wearing the camouflage covered jumpsuit. And I just reach down and grab him like by the ass and the back of the neck by the jumpsuit and just like pick him up and like fire him. So he's hot now. Savio's like, don't be shooting, just get to your corners, tag out, tag out. So we tag out. They go through the rest of the match, and we come back. We do this finish and whatever. So we get in the back, and Nelson comes in first, Viscera, and he's like, man, what was that? And I was like, I'm not taking a staple gun in the face. And me and Nelson, he's like, yeah, but Jack's going to be pissed. He thinks he's got more seniority than you, and you should do what you're told. And I said, I'm not getting stapled in the face with a bloody, dirty staple gun for nothing. Like, it didn't mean anything. There's no payoff. Like, there's nothing between us. And then Balls comes in, and he's yelling at me. He's got his chair, and he's yelling, you should respect New Jack, blah, 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 and all this. And I was like, off Balls. Like, I'm not taking this. If you guys want to cut yourself to ribbons, you guys go ahead, but I'm not doing it for nothing. And then Jack comes in, and Jack's got this knife with got the brass knuckles on it with the spike and the chain, and he's coming in, he's pointing it at me, and he's yelling, and do you know who I am? And what I thought was funny is like, I've worked for ECW and CZW, and he said CZW, and I laughed. I just started snorting, like I was like, really? I just got back from New Japan and the German tournaments, and you're hitting me with I worked for CZW, like, and he's like, you're not used to working with wrestlers like me. I said, no, I'm used to working with like Robbie Brookside, James Mason, guys that can work, Dave Taylor, those guys, Rick Steiner. Right. And he just got mad, and he's like, got the knife to my face. And so Viscera and all them are just like, say you're sorry, Mike, say you're sorry. So I said, here I am back in the corner. Remember, I was supposed to be brought in as Bruiser Brody's son. I'm now in a shower with a knife, up to my face. So I said, all right, then I'm sorry. And then everybody get out of the dressing room. And Ricky Banderas comes out of the shower. He's standing in the shower the whole time. And he's got like a straight edge razor. And he's like, why'd you say you're sorry? Because he had a knife to my face. There's three of them. There's only one of me. He goes, I had your back. I didn't know you were back there. Right? So anyway, it was pretty hot tension in the locker room then. Everybody kind of knew what happened. So Jack, we came together in the same car, Jack and I, but they left us in separate cars to go. And we finished up. We stayed away from each other the rest of the weekend. There was a lot of tension in the locker room. And then a week went by. New Jack went home, and we were building up for another big show at the end of the month. And Luke calls me up, and he's like, mate, the fans seen that you and Jack were like shooting on each other. They want you two to do like a cage match. And I was like, yeah, okay. I said, and I'm still pissed off. I'm butthurt because I said I was sorry when I wasn't. Like, it's eating at me. So I said, I'll do it. But he's not wearing those coveralls where he can hide a whole bunch of blades. Because you have to remember, he just stabbed that guy like 16 times 2 weeks before he came down, right? And then the whole Gypsy Joe thing and the mass transit thing, all these things are in the back of my head, right? So I said, I'll go do it. You put him in a pair of black tights, and you put me in a black tights, and you put us in a cage, and let's see who comes out. And he's like, mate. He goes, we're not selling the UFC here. We're selling thing. I was like, I don't trust him. I said, I don't trust him. He could stab me with anything. We already don't like each other now. Mm-hmm. I'm not going in. I said, you put us in plain black tights, no weapons. I'll go out and I'll fight New Jack any day, anytime like this. And he goes, mate, that ain't going to work. So he hangs up. And now everybody knows we don't like each other. And they know this is eating at me more. And so we get into the dressing room the next day, and we were in Kowboy the first night. And we walk in, and I walk in, and I look at the booking sheet. Now, Madman Pondo's in on this trip. So I look at the booking sheet, and it says Hangman and Pondo versus Slash Venom and New Jack. Yeah. And so I come up and I look at everybody else came and looked at the booking sheet. Everybody's gathered around looking at the booking sheet, and the place is dead quiet. Now, Puerto Rican locker room is never quiet.
Right.
And everybody just looks back and looks at me, and they're just kind of nodding. And I was like, okay. And then I walk up, look at the booking sheet, and it's me versus Jack and the tag team. And I just went, okay. And it was dead quiet in that locker room the whole night. So Jack looked at the booking sheet, and he just looked back at me, and we're sitting down. He's going through all his weapons. So the guy down there named Chicano, and great guy, friggin', he always had surgical scalpels on him, like the whole handle and everything. So I said, all right, and this is going to happen. So I got a steel tube, a round piece of steel tube, and put the scalpel blade in there, and I put it in my boot. And when I put it in my boot, Shane Sewell, Palaio, all the other guys seen it, and Jack seen it, and Jack was loading up, and so everybody was like, "This is gonna go down. This is gonna." So I'm getting ready for this match. I walked by Luke. I said, "If you wanted it, you're gonna get it." And I was like, "I told you, like, but if you want it, you're gonna get it." And I went up to the locker room to get in the shower to wet my hair, and I was getting ready to go out, and I turn around, and here's Jack standing in the shower coming into the shower behind me. And again, I'm thinking, here we go, Bruiser Brody.
Right.
It's going on right now. Here it is, So I turned around, and Jack says to me, he goes, Mike, I don't have many places to work anymore. He goes, there's very few places where I can get booked anymore. He goes, this is one of the last places that pays me well. He goes, you and I don't have to like each other. He goes, but we have to work there. And I said, I don't trust you at all. You bring mine, and if you try to me, it's on. And he said, well, how about this? He goes, I won't touch you. He goes, I'll work with Pondo. You work with Slash. We don't touch each other. And I said, all right, fair enough. So then Slash walks into the dressing room. And so I'll tell the second part of the story, and then I'll rewind back to what happens next. Okay. So we go out for the match now. People just see us walking out. It's a sellout at the curtain, right? Like, the place has been quiet. Nobody said a word. It's a sellout at the curtain. So we go out. We do the match. We stayed away from each other the whole night. So the finish is the end of the first baseline. The ring truck was parked at the end of the first baseline. New Jack was going to climb up onto that, and then he was going to jump down onto Pondo on the table, go through the table, and then the pinfall was going to be there. They tied me up with my own noose on the ring post or whatever. So the finish goes off. Madman Pondo's hip pops out right out of place, dislocates. Right? If you know the gimmick, you know the gimmick, right? So it pops out, and his foot's like rolled backwards. Yep. So we come in the back and come in the dressing room, and I'm like, New Jack, you got to get we didn't have to do that dive off the top. This Pondo can't feed his family now because of you. He's going to be out with that hip for a long time. This is, he goes over, and he's got the knife, and he's coming across the dressing room at me, and I'm coming at him, and we're coming like across at each other. And then Slash comes in, and he has a kendo stick, and he fires it between me and New Jack, and he starts yelling at New Jack. He's like, New Jack, you Pondo and Slash are from Indiana, and they're buddies or whatever. And he's like, and New Jack pulls up the knife, and I was like, New Jack, and everybody's meeting. All of a sudden, Palaio and all the young referees and the guys all pull the guns out. and all the guns go right to New Jack. And one of the guys is standing behind him with a knife. And New Jack just goes white as a ghost. And he's like, and then we turn around, and now I'll go back to where we were when we first walked in. After Jack and I had that discussion earlier, and Flash came in, Flash goes, listen, all the boys are waiting for you two to kill each other. He goes, let's rib them. He goes, we're going to do this. You guys stay away from each other. He goes, because I know you're going to just piss each other off and it's going to go bad. But after we do the finish, you guys go like you're pissed off at each other. He goes, Pondo can do this thing where he can dislocate his hip and move it around. So if he does that, the boys will take it serious, right? Because we'll get the ambulance to come out. So anyway, we did the whole thing, and at the end, we didn't know. So they all got the guns pulled out and the knife like up to New Jack. And New Jack goes white. And then we go, gotchas. And they're like, what?
Didn't get the joke.
Didn't get the joke. The boys wouldn't talk to me for 2 weeks. Shane Sewell was pissed. Palaio came up to me, could only speak like broken English, and he was one of the guys that had the gun. My brother's dead now, so I'm not going to get him in any trouble, but he's like, I love you, man. Like, you are one of our brothers. You're not a gringo like the rest of them. Like, we love you. I was going to kill that guy for you. And I was like, I love you, man. He's like, no, we can't talk.
No, we're done.
He's like, I nearly killed that guy for you. And that was the thing about the Puerto Rican dressing room. We, and I know because Ernie Sin has mentioned this in some of his talks about Puerto Rico, everybody in that locker room has a gun except for you.
Yeah.
And everybody's got these big hand cannons that, like, there's guys in there with the gold plated ones, and it was just a different time. It was literally the Wild West of wrestling, right?
It's the same thing in Mexico too, though, right? I mean, it's the connection outside of wrestling that you end up with that kind of hardware in your bag, right?
Yeah, and it was one of those moments where everybody freaked out, and Luke went running out as soon as Luke ran out of the thing, and he's like, Jason, you're going to kill the business. And he just took off, and then he went and got Savio, and Savio was like, didn't know what was going on. He came back, and everybody was so mad at us
because you almost like, listen, they already had the Brody thing. One more murder inside of the company. That's it. It's done. So many people lose paychecks at that point.
We didn't realize that people were going to be pulling guns, though, right? That wasn't in the plan. We just thought we'd get to where we're near going to throw blows or stab each other, and then turn around and say, "I gotcha." But what's funny about that story is New Jack was so embarrassed that he was so scared, and of course he was scared. He had a whole bunch of guns, but he would not admit that he was scared. And when Hannibal actually asked him about it on one of his interviews, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
Yes.
I remember Flash Flanagan and Anarchy, the referee that was there at the time, and all the guys, they watched that, and they're like, what do you mean he didn't forget? He didn't remember, but he just would not admit that he was scared. I'd be like, I pants.
Yeah.
But the people had guns and knives pulled on me, and I'm in Puerto Rico. Of course, pants, right?
What are you supposed to, it's funny you mentioned that knife, because at the other end of that chain from that knife, he just had a simple fork.
Yeah.
But on the other end, right? Because I remember the first time I ever worked Jack, I'm already in the dressing room. He shows up at the dressing room, and, promoter introduces the two of us. Cool. No problem. You guys are going to be working together. I'm like, no problem. You go get situated. We'll figure stuff out. Right. And he was already kind of a little bit of a mood. I get it. You know what I mean? And this is after you already hear all of the stories and stuff like that. Right. So you know what's going on. So you're like, okay. And he's going through his bag, same thing. And he pulls out this chain, and he's got the fork at one end, pulls that out first and starts pulling the chain. And then all of a sudden that knife comes out, the curved with the knuckles. And you're just going,
the spikes.
Yep, with the spikes on the knuckles. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, all right, cool. Because I mean, again, you know me, I'm 6'4", 285, 290 pounds at the time. Like, no problem. I can handle myself. But there's lines. So
there's still weapons too, right? And
I look over at one of the boys, and I'm like, you still got those knuckles on your bag? He's like, yep. I'm like, cool. Hand him to me. I put him in my pocket. And we go out there and we do the thing. And as soon as we, we start brawling a little bit out the gate, he hands me out. He comes out after me. Boom, smashes a beer bottle. And I'm like, here we go.
Yeah.
I stick my hand in my pocket and I pull them out, and I've got them on, like slide them right on my hand. I've got them out, and he can see that they're on there. And I'm looking up like this, and he comes down soft as a baby's ass.
Yeah.
Like, because he was like, oh, I can't take advantage of this, right? And I was fine, and we were fine, and I would work. We had a nice conversation afterwards. He was like, a lot of people, don't know what to do, blah blah blah. You were great, absolutely, and we were fine. We would get together, a lot of times we would have phone calls after that, and that's when you got to meet Jerome.
Well, we went out after that whole thing, and we went out that night, and I want to say it was Mike Tyson versus Bruce Seldon. I could be wrong but we went and watched the Mike Tyson fight at the bar together, and everybody we legitimately went from we're going to kill each other, probably 4 hours earlier that night. So we went out and had a bar. But I will always say, the problem with Jack was his substance abuse, and you never knew which Jack you were getting. Right? Like Balls Mahoney was one of his closest friends, and I seen him try to peel his head off just because he forgot a spot, and so and it was always if he was under the influence. If you got Jack, happy-go-lucky Jack, and you're traveling, 2 or 3 hours, and you're sitting there goofing around with Jack, he's the greatest guy in the world.